Hey guys, Lindsay here.
And Marissa.
We are going to talk about being LGBT in the workplace, specifically L. We saw Ashley Riddell's video about this, and so we thought she gave really good answers, and we thought we would add to what she said.
Well, and also because she said that there were no other videos that she could find when she Googled it, so we thought we would add to the one that they created.
And we threw in our 2 cents.
We should also say that we're probably 10 plus years older than Ashley and Grace.
Ready? Mm-hmm. What is your job?
Right now, I don't work. I'm writing, and so I'm writing from home. And that prohibits me from having workplace discrimination currently. But when I did work after college, I worked in higher education and student affairs, specifically residential life. So that's what I'll be referring to.
Yep. I've had a couple jobs, so I'm going to speak from a couple different jobs. But all the jobs that I've had have been in computer programming. Question number 2. Does your sexuality impact your job?
In residential life, I worked at several different colleges in my career there. And because they were live-on positions, my sexuality did impact my life. Because when you interview for those positions, although I don't have to say, like, the gender of my partner, well, your housing is part of your compensation, and so they need to know if someone is living with you. So unlike other people, like when I interviewed, I looked at colleges that had, at the time, specific non-discrimination clauses and were particularly liberal, so that when I interviewed, saying, and this is just a decision that I made, but saying that I was queer and that I was partnered with a woman was something that came out early in sort of the process.
And I would basically say no. I mean, it doesn't really affect my work. So, and unlike Marissa, I wasn't living on where I was working. Have you ever felt pressure to hide your sexuality?
You know, I went to a Catholic college and was almost fired from my job because I was gay. But that, although I don't want to dismiss that, I was at a Catholic college. And so in higher education, like, you know, the reason I didn't work at universities that were tightly affiliated with religious organizations was because of that.
I don't think I've ever tried to hide it. I wasn't out in my first 2 jobs. But it just didn't come up, and I didn't have a partner, so I didn't have to worry about benefits or anything like that.
Yeah, because benefits, not as much today because of the Supreme Court ruling and things like that. You can just have a family plan and not say, but before that, way before that, if you had a job that even offered benefits, you'd have to ask for specific domestic partnership benefits.
Right.
And so they'd know, you'd have to out yourself.
How do you come out to your coworkers? Or do you come out to your coworkers?
Higher education as a career field, particularly in student affairs, is a pretty liberal place to be. And so, like I said before, you know, my sexuality comes out early in the process because I'll have someone living with me. And so also in higher education, when you get hired and you sort of get together, it's you and your families. Right. So I didn't really ever feel like I had to come out to my coworkers because it was always just, it happened like the moment you moved on campus. You know, everyone was like, anyway, security, the students, the offices, everybody knew.
So it was like insta come out no matter like when you first
You had
started.
to be prepared.
I guess I typically just say Marissa's name, which is a female name, and that's just how I come out. Like we'll be talking and someone will mention a wife or a husband and I'll be like, oh yeah, Marissa does blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So
she's much more like the dropping pronouns type of person. Talk about dress codes. I have the privilege of being able to pass very easily as a feminine person. Like I like to wear dresses. I, have sort of traditional feminine qualities, and so dress code has never been an issue for me, and it doesn't seem to collide, like my gender expression doesn't collide with my sexuality much.
It was usually always business casual. I never really had to dress up for work. So it was usually just khakis and a polo or a button down. For the past few years, I've been working from home, so it really doesn't matter what I'm wearing. If I was more in sales and in front of people, like customers, I think I'd feel more awkward about what I would have to wear. But I know that, and so I have the privilege to be able to not do that.
Any challenges with your boss about your sexuality? Short and sweet, no. I haven't had any issues. And that is because I've been in higher education and student affairs.
And I haven't really either.
What about your other ones, though?
I wasn't out. I might have had problems.
Yeah.
I might have had, I mean, like, because it was the early 2000s and there weren't many LGBT things, and I was in the South. I think if I had a domestic partner, I would have had problems.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would have been fired, per se, but I don't know if it would have went well.
Do you feel an obligation to come out at work? I did feel an obligation to be out, specifically on college campuses, because a lot of people, go through a lot of struggles with their gender identity and sexuality and all sorts of things. It was very important for me and my partner to be strong, thoughtful, respectful examples of what, even though I was only a few years younger than them, an adult and older queer woman was and could be. And I think it did have an impact.
No.
Obviously.
Obviously I wasn't out in my first few jobs. And it really took Marissa to come along to talk about being to be out at work.
We have very different. I think we interact very differently in work environments.
Right.
Any final advice? When you're thinking about coming out at work, there are a lot more protections now than there were when we first had to decide whether to come out at work, but not everywhere. And so I pulled this up really quick. There are 22 states and DC that have protections for LGBT people. 3 of those states do not include the T. And then there are 27 states where you can be fired because of your sexuality or your gender expression. There is no protection. It's built into state law. Obama put into place that there's no discrimination for LGBT folks that are employed by the federal government. Right. But that does not go into private institutions. If you live in those states, there is no protection for you if you are not a federal worker. And so, or if the company themselves chooses to do a non-discrimination clause. Companies will have they're across the spectrum. And if you can, sometimes look them up and choose companies that have discrimination policies regardless, you can tell that maybe the environment is going to be better for you to come out if you do choose to.
Yeah. But yeah, so those are our experiences. I mean, they're slightly different, of course, because we grew up just a little bit earlier. We were in the workforce a little bit sooner.
The Pew Research Center, and this was done in 2013, found that 21% of LGBT adults had been discriminated against in their workplace, and 38 had been harassed. And so you still have issues and you still have workplaces that are not necessarily conducive. And so really do your homework and trust your gut on those things. Mm-hmm. Overall, we had not terrible experiences with coming out in the workplace.
Yeah. I mean,
for being the age we are.
Yes. Although I wasn't out. So at work.
That doesn't count then, though. But it doesn't count.
Right.
Like, if you didn't come out, then it doesn't count.
Well, then I don't know.
Well, I'm no help then. Obviously we're no help because Lindsay didn't come out and she was in the closet till forever. And I lived in some sort of crazy academic liberal world. And so we are no help.
Disregard this video then.
Now you have another video to add to the one other video about workplace discrimination.
Yep.
And bye.
Bye.